The Starship Aurora drifted through the uncharted depths of space, its sleek form gliding silently between distant stars, the hum of its engines a steady pulse in the vast emptiness of the cosmos. The crew aboard was a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, all equally on edge as they ventured into a sector of space so remote that not even the most daring explorers had ventured there in decades. Strange signals had been detected months ago, patterns that didn't match any known species or technology. And now here they were approaching the heart of it all, the unknown, the heart of the mystery. Astra, the ship's artificial intelligence, was more than capable of guiding them through the most dangerous of situations, but even she seemed a little uneasy. Her usual calm, detached voice now carried a faint note of concern. Astra's voice rang through the speakers in the command center with a slight edge to it. "Captain Calloway, I advise caution. We are entering a region of space where ships have disappeared without a trace. The risk of encountering hostile forces is high. I have calculated numerous escape vectors should you choose to retreat at any time." Captain Avery Calloway, however, didn't flinch at the suggestion. Her eyes narrowed as she gazed out into the vastness of space on the forward display in front of her. She didn't come this far to turn back now. The universe had always been full of dangers. The unknown was what drove humanity forward. She glanced at her first officer, Lieutenant Lyra, who nodded in silent agreement. Calloway turned to the rest of the bridge crew, every one of them tense but resolute. "I'm not backing down. We didn't come all this way to turn tail at the first sign of trouble. We'll take it slow, stay sharp, and be ready for anything," she ordered. And she meant it. The crew began to make their preparations, readying themselves for what they didn't know would come their way. Every movement was precise, every action deliberate. Astra monitored everything with perfect efficiency, but even she couldn't predict what was about to unfold. Soon they were drifting closer to an old space station, the wreckage of some ancient civilization. It was abandoned, but it pulsed faintly with energy. Something about the place didn't sit right with Calloway, but she kept her face unreadable. As always, she ordered the crew to approach it cautiously, scanning for any signs of life or activity. Something wasn't adding up. The signals they had intercepted from the station weren't coming from anything they had ever seen before. Astra ran countless simulations, but no data matched anything in her database. As the Aurora neared the station, a sudden transmission came through, loud and clear. A voice cracked over the comms, the words sharp and filled with warning. "Humans, this is your final warning. Leave now or face the consequences." It was clear the message was meant for them, but the identity of the sender was still a mystery. Astra ran an analysis, quickly trying to trace the origin of the message. But before she could speak again, the voice cut in once more. "This is not a request. This is your final warning. Leave now or be destroyed." The crew exchanged wary looks. Captain Calloway's eyes burned with determination. "We're not running, we're exploring. And that's what we're going to do. Keep the ship steady. Astra, hold us at this distance until I give the word." The warning still echoed through the command center, sharp and foreboding. But Captain Calloway stood firm, her eyes locked on the dark shape of the abandoned station ahead. There was something almost eerie about it, as if the station itself was waiting for them. She could feel the weight of the crew's gaze on her back, but she didn't let it shake her. Astra's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, the readings from the station are erratic. I am detecting multiple anomalies in the surrounding area. It is highly probable that this region is inhabited by a hostile species given the patterns in the signal." The crew glanced at one another, but Calloway didn't flinch. Just because someone threatened them didn't mean they were going to run. She'd learned long ago that fear was the enemy's best weapon. "We're here for answers, and we'll get them," she replied coldly. Astra calculated a series of possible escape trajectories just in case things went sideways, but the human crew was already preparing for something else. Lieutenant Lyra was running tactical simulations on the side monitors, ready to deploy countermeasures, while Surgeon Tavares and his team checked their weapons for readiness. The crew was prepared for whatever the situation demanded, and they weren't about to be intimidated by a voice over the comms. Captain Calloway gave the order to proceed slowly towards the station. Astra followed the command with precision, her algorithms directing the ship through a series of tight maneuvers. As they crept closer to the source of the strange transmission, the comms crackled to life again, this time with a more threatening tone. "Leave this system immediately, or we will open fire. You will not survive another warning." Calloway's hand was steady as she adjusted the ship's trajectory. "Let them come," she said flatly. "Lieutenant Lyra, send a message back," a simple reply warning the station's inhabitants that they were not here to start a fight, but they were prepared to defend themselves. The message was brief and to the point, but no sooner had it been sent that another voice broke through, this one guttural and cold, a distinct growl in its tone. "So you choose death, then so be it. Prepare to face the full might of the Therics." The moment the words left the speaker, the silence that followed felt like a heavy weight hanging in the air. Astra's systems immediately went on high alert. "Captain, the ships on scanners are of unknown origin, but I can confirm they are heavily armed, multiple enemy vessels closing in rapidly. Their intent is clear. They are preparing to attack." The situation was escalating quickly. Calloway's heart rate remained steady. She had been in hostile standoffs before, and this was no different. Not even a hint of fear crossed her face. She didn't trust Astra's tactical predictions. She trusted her own crew. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, my team is ready to board if needed. Tavares and his squad are ready to deploy the moment you give the word. We'll fight back if we have to." She paused, assessing the situation quickly. "Astra, I need a full analysis on their weapons systems and defenses." Astra's response came quickly. "Captain, the Therics are a militaristic species. They use energy-based weapons and advanced cloaking technology. Their ships are significantly larger and more heavily shielded than ours. Their firepower is formidable, but I believe we have the advantage in agility and speed. I can provide evasive maneuvers, but only if you give the word." Calloway's eyes hardened. She wasn't going to back down now. "All hands prepare for battle," she said, her voice unwavering. "Set course for the closest enemy ship. Astra, get us in range, but don't engage until I say otherwise." The crew braced for impact, and the Aurora surged forward into the heart of the storm. The Aurora's engines roared to life as the ship hurtled toward the incoming fleet of Therics vessels. The crew's tense anticipation was palpable, every eye on the monitors waiting for the first sign of conflict. But Calloway's calm demeanor kept everyone focused. The ship's shaking under fire was inevitable, but the crew had faced worse. She knew that Astra's calculations would be key, but it was the human touch that would win this battle. Astra's voice rang out in the quiet of the bridge. "Captain, we are entering firing range. I recommend initiating evasive maneuvers now, or we will be struck by their first salvo." Calloway gave the nod. Lieutenant Lyra immediately called out to the tactical crew, "Switch to evasive pattern Delta. Execute on my mark." Her crew responded without hesitation, their movements synchronized and swift. The ship swerved sharply, veering to the left to avoid a direct hit. The first round from the Therics fleet missed by mere meters, but the tension didn't ease. The enemy ships were closing in faster than Astra had predicted. Calloway knew they couldn't afford to just dodge and wait. They needed to strike first without giving the Therics a chance to fully coordinate their attack. Astra adjusted the shields to compensate for incoming fire, but the crew didn't need the AI to tell them what to do. They were already moving. The Aurora's weapons came online with a loud hum. The crew operated them with practiced ease. It was clear they weren't new to this kind of combat. Captain, Calloway's orders came fast and precise. "Fire. The starboard lasers. Fire again, targeting their engines. Get them off our tail." Astra fine-tuned the weapon systems, guiding them with split-second precision. But it was Lyra who added the personal touch with her sharp tactical mind. She recognized the vulnerability in the enemy's formation and signaled for an unexpected move. "Captain, we've got an opening," she said, her voice steady. "We can use their overconfidence against them. I suggest we disable their lead ship and take the fight to the rest of the fleet immediately." Calloway didn't hesitate. "Go ahead." Lieutenant Lyra gave the command, and the Aurora shot forward, moving like a predator, closing the gap. Astra's calculations now a backdrop to the brilliance of human instinct. As the crew worked together, the ship fired once more. The lead Therics vessel shuddered under the blast and exploded into a burst of energy. The shockwave sent debris flying as the Aurora danced around it, dodging incoming fire. With ease, the Therics scrambled in confusion, but Calloway knew that confusion was a weapon, and she intended to use it. She barked orders to the crew without pause. "Now we finish them off. Focus fire on the left wing. Astra, lock on their weapon systems. Target the power conduits. Let's take out their ability to retaliate. Astra followed the orders, instantly recalculating the new trajectory and focus points within milliseconds. The Aurora's cannons lit up again, this time hitting the enemy ships. With pinpoint accuracy, the first blast severed a key power line on one of the ships, leaving it vulnerable. The crew cheered as the ship's shields flickered and failed. Another barrage of fire took out a secondary vessel, leaving the enemy with a gaping hole in their defenses. The remaining Thyrex ships faltered at the sudden loss of their coordinated strength. Captain Calloway kept her cool as the battle raged on. She'd seen this many times before. Humanity's will to survive and the ability to adapt had always been the key to victory. Astra relayed data to the crew every second, giving them the edge they needed. But it was the humans who made the decisions that counted. Astra's cold calculations couldn't factor in the creativity that humanity brought to the fight, and that was what would win them the day. Captain, the enemy commander is on the comms. He's demanding surrender, Astra warned. But Calloway simply smiled. There was no surrender, not today. The comms crackled again, this time with a voice laced with venom. You dare challenge the might of the Thyrex? You will regret this, humans. Zalgor, the Thyrex commander, roared through the speakers. His words were filled with a cold fury, but Calloway didn't flinch. She exchanged a glance with Lieutenant Lyra and then gave the order. Prepare boarding teams. We take the fight to them. Are you sure, Captain? Lyra asked, her voice calm, but with a tinge of curiosity. It was risky, but Calloway had made her decision. We've got the advantage, but we need to finish this before they regroup. Astra's voice came in again, cold and analytical as always. I suggest caution, Captain. While your tactics are bold, deploying a boarding party could leave the ship vulnerable if the enemy's reinforcements arrive sooner than anticipated. Noted, Calloway replied, her tone steady. But we're not here to play it safe. Get the teams ready, Lieutenant. We board now. As the Aurora continued to maneuver through the battlefield, evading blasts and delivering devastating fire at the disoriented Thyrex, the crew prepped for the next phase. Sergeant Tavares, a battle-hardened veteran, and his team were first to arm themselves and move to the hangar bay. They were experts at close-quarters combat, prepared to infiltrate the heart of the Thyrex vessel and take out their leadership. Dr. Maxton, the ship's tech specialist, was already devising ways to disable the Thyrex's internal security systems to give the team a better chance. Once we're inside, we'll have to move fast, Tavares said, checking his rifle. His eyes locked onto Calloway, determination in them. We go straight for the command center. We take them out, or we don't come back. Calloway nodded. Do whatever it takes. We're ending this today. The team moved quickly, adrenaline fueling their every step. The crew was used to high-stakes situations, but this was different. They weren't just defending their ship anymore. They were taking the fight to the enemy's doorstep. Astra provided real-time intelligence, feeding them details on the layout of the Thyrex ship, pinpointing weaknesses and vulnerable spots in the station's defenses. The humans, however, relied on more than just raw data. They used their instincts, their adaptability in the face of danger, to stay one step ahead. As the boarding team prepared to board the Thyrex flagship, the tension aboard the Aurora reached a boiling point. The ship shuddered as enemy fire exploded around them, but Astra expertly guided them through the barrage, maintaining their course. We're within range, Astra announced, the ship's targeting systems now locked onto their objective. Now, Lieutenant, Calloway commanded, launch the boarding pods. The hangar bay doors opened, and the pods shot into space, streaking toward the Thyrex flagship with blistering speed. Tavares and his team were inside the pods, waiting for the moment it would make contact with the enemy vessel. The moment the pods collided with the Thyrex ship, a low rumble echoed through the Aurora. Tavares' team swiftly breached the hull, cutting their way through the alien ship's exterior like hot knives through butter. As they moved inside, the sight was unlike anything they had expected. The Thyrex were a race built for war, their ship filled with deadly weapons, corridors lined with advanced security systems. But nothing could stop the humans. They moved swiftly and efficiently, clearing rooms and taking out guards as they made their way toward the command center. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Calloway kept a close eye on the progress. Astra monitored every second of the mission, ensuring that no surprises could derail their plans. "The boarding team is advancing," Astra reported, "but resistance is increasing. They are encountering heavier fire at the command center." Calloway's jaw tightened, but she didn't let the tension break her focus. "Tavares, you've got this. Keep pushing forward." The crew had no intentions of letting the Thyrix command structure survive. The battle was far from over, but Calloway knew one thing. The humans aboard this ship had something no alien fleet could predict: unrelenting willpower and the courage to go beyond the impossible. The battle aboard the Thyrix flagship escalated quickly. Tavares and his team encountered heavier resistance than they had anticipated. The corridors were swarming with alien warriors, armed with deadly energy rifles that could burn through the toughest armor. But the humans weren't just skilled, they were relentless. Tavares led the charge, his rifle snapping with precision, taking down a Thyrix soldier in the hallway with a well-placed shot. "We're almost there," Tavares grunted, keeping his head down as the team advanced under fire. "The command center's just up ahead. Stay sharp." Behind him, the rest of the squad moved in tight formation, securing their perimeter while laying down suppressing fire. The sound of gunfire echoed through the alien ship, but nothing would stop them now. Every step took them closer to the heart of the Thyrix operations, where the enemy's leadership awaited. And when they reached that command center, the battle would shift in humanity's favor. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, Calloway and the bridge crew were watching every move with bated breath. Astra's voice was cold, calculated, and unwavering as usual, but even she couldn't disguise the growing intensity of the situation. "Captain, the enemy is attempting to reinforce the flagship with another wave of ships," Astra reported, her voice tinged with concern. "I have already initiated evasive maneuvers, but their numbers are overwhelming." Calloway clenched her fists, her gaze locked on the monitor as more Thyrix vessels appeared on the outer rim of the battlefield. It was a desperate move, but it was too late for them to regroup. They were in the thick of it now, and they were not going to back down. "Understood, Astra," Calloway said, her voice calm but firm. "Get us in position to engage their reinforcements. We've got the firepower. We just need to use it. The crew on the ground needs our support, and we're going to give it to them." As the Aurora shifted its course, Astra's systems worked in tandem with the crew to line up a perfect shot. The ship's forward cannons fired in quick succession, targeting the incoming ships with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions rippled across space as the enemy fleet was torn apart, their shields flaring in the vacuum of space as they disintegrated one by one. On the Thyrix flagship, Tavares' team reached the command center. The doors burst open with a loud crack, and the squad poured into the room, guns raised. The Thyrix commanders, taken by surprise, scrambled for cover, but it was too late. Tavares was already on them, his rifle firing in rapid succession. Within moments, the room was silent except for the crackle of energy shields and the sound of the squad securing the area. "Clear," Tavares said over the comm, his voice low but triumphant. "The command center is ours. We've got control of the ship's central systems." Calloway's heart rate steadied as the news came in. The Aurora's crew had done it. They had taken the heart of the enemy fleet. The tide had turned in their favor, but there was still one last hurdle: Zalagor. Astra's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Captain, I am detecting a large energy buildup at the core of the Thyrix flagship. It appears they are preparing to deploy their superweapon." Calloway cursed under her breath. The Thyrix were far from beaten. Zalagor was going to make one last stand. "Get our boarding team to the core now," Calloway barked. "We need to disable that weapon before it can fire. Tavares, I need you to act fast." "Understood, Captain." Tavares responded, his voice laced with determination. "We're on it." In the command center of the Thyrix flagship, Tavares and his team moved quickly to sabotage the core, knowing that time was running out. Meanwhile, on the Aurora, Calloway set her jaw, watching the battle unfold. The outcome was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had proven itself as the most unpredictable force in the galaxy, and the Thyrix were about to learn that the hard way. Tavares and his team navigated the bowels of the Thyrix flagship with military precision, moving through the tight, dimly lit corridors. The rumble of explosions and the distant sounds of gunfire echoed as the battle raged on outside. The countdown to the enemy's superweapon's activation was ticking, and every second felt like an eternity. Sweat beaded on Tavares' forehead as he gripped his weapon, pushing forward with unwavering resolve. "Almost there," he muttered to his squad, his voice steady despite the tension. The layout of the ship had been mapped out by Astra, and they were nearing the central reactor, where the superweapon was housed. "Stay sharp, this is where they'll put up their biggest fight." As they reached the reactor room, the blast doors slammed shut with a deafening clang. Immediately, they were met with fierce resistance. The Thyrix warriors guarding the reactor were well armed and highly trained, and they made their last stand in this critical location. The soldiers opened fire, energy beams lighting up the dim corridor, but Tavares and his team had already adapted. They crouched behind cover, returning fire with deadly accuracy, taking down one Thyrix after another. "Keep moving," Tavares shouted, signaling to his squad to advance. "We don't have much time." The team pushed forward, clearing the final stretch to the reactor core. As Tavares reached the entrance, he could feel the hum of energy. This wasn't just any weapon. This was something far more dangerous. The Thyrix had designed a weapon capable of annihilating entire fleets in a single shot, and it was nearly ready to fire. "Plant the charges," Tavares ordered. "We disable this thing, or we're all dead." Sergeant Dunn, the team's demolitions expert, moved to work on the control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. He grunted with effort, sweat dripping down his face as the seconds ticked by. "The core's still active. I'm bypassing the shutdown. This is going to take longer than I thought." Tavares glanced nervously at his squad, his mind racing. If Dunn didn't disable the core soon, the weapon would fire, and the Aurora would be finished. The enemy had already shown they had no qualms about using their most devastating weapon. They couldn't afford to let that happen. "Take them down," Tavares shouted. "Cover Dunn." His team surged forward, using their limited ammunition to clear the remaining guards. Each shot was precise, aiming for the weak points in their armor, while Tavares covered the doorway. He could feel the tension rising, the urgency of the moment pushing him to act faster. At the control panel, Dunn's fingers flew over the holographic interface, trying to bypass the security measures the Thyrix had placed. He muttered curses under his breath, a mix of frustration and determination as the seconds seemed to stretch on forever. "Almost there. Come on." Finally, the terminal beeped and the lights in the reactor room flickered. "Got it," Dunn yelled, slamming the final key. Weapons deactivated. The core's in shutdown mode. "We're good." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the team. The danger had passed for now. "Good work, Sergeant," Tavares said, his voice gruff but filled with admiration. "Get those charges set and let's get out of here. We got one more job to do." The team quickly set the explosive charges to ensure the Thyrix superweapon couldn't be reactivated. They knew the longer they stayed, the higher the risk of encountering reinforcements. But they weren't leaving without finishing the job. Meanwhile, on the Aurora, Calloway's eyes flickered back and forth between the battle unfolding around her and the team's progress. Astra continued to feed information, offering tactical suggestions and keeping the captain informed. "Captain, the remaining Thyrix fleet has begun retreating," Astra reported, her tone neutral and almost satisfied. They're disorganized, and morale is collapsing. Their commander has likely been neutralized. Calloway's face remained impassive, but inside, she allowed herself a small victory. The mission was far from over, but they had gained the upper hand. Stay focused, Astra. We still need to get our team off that ship. With the charges set and the reactor disabled, Tavares and his squad made their way back to the escape pods, their mission a success. As they reached the pod bay, they saw the enemy ship was starting to break apart, explosions rocking the structure as the damage from their infiltration took its toll. "We're getting out of here," Tavares shouted, leaping into the pod. The rest of the squad followed, sealing themselves in as the hatch closed. The countdown was on. The escape pods ejected from the Thyrix flagship just as the super weapons core imploded, taking the heart of the enemy ship with it. As the Aurora's crew watched from their own vessel, they saw the flagship disintegrate in a burst of brilliant light, the aftermath of their victory. The Aurora had not only survived the threat, but had turned the tide of the war, proving yet again that when humans faced the impossible, they came out victorious. The bright light from the explosion faded, leaving behind the jagged remnants of the Thyrix flagship, now a scattering of debris in the void of space. The crew of the Aurora stood still, a collective breath held as they watched the enemy vessel disintegrate. Silence filled the bridge before the first voice broke through the stillness. "Did we really just do that?" Lieutenant Lyra asked, her voice tinged with disbelief but full of awe. She stood by the weapons station, watching the remnants of the battle unfold. There was no mistaking it. The Thyrix fleet was in full retreat, their forces scattered and in disarray. "We did," Captain Calloway said flatly, her expression unreadable as always. "And it's not over yet. Enemy vessels are retreating at high speed." Astra's calm voice filled the bridge. "Their remaining ships are abandoning the sector. The tactical advantage is ours." Calloway nodded, her gaze fixed on the view screen showing the last of the enemy ships jumping to warp. "But we won't let them get away that easily. We need to track them down." "Captain," Astra continued, "I've initiated a trace on their jump patterns. However, they may be heading to a nearby stronghold. I advise caution. They will likely regroup and come back in full force." Calloway didn't respond right away. She was processing the data Astra was feeding her, calculating the best possible moves. "No time to waste," she finally said. "Set a course to intercept. We'll hunt them down before they can lick their wounds." Lyra looked over at the captain, a hint of concern in her eyes. "You think we're ready for another fight?" "We don't have a choice," Calloway replied. "We can't let them regroup and come at us again. We hit them now, while they're weak." The crew moved into action, preparing for the next phase of their mission. The adrenaline was still pumping through their veins, but there was no time for celebration. Not yet. They had to keep pushing forward. On the other side of the ship, Tavares and his squad had safely returned to the Aurora, having made their harrowing escape in the last of the enemy's escape pods. The moment they docked, the crew cheered. Though it was brief, they had done their part. And now the captain would lead them into the next phase. Tavares stepped onto the bridge, his expression grim but resolute. "We made it out, Captain. The charges did their job. The Thyrix ship is gone." "Good work, Sergeant," Calloway said without taking her eyes off the view screen. "But there's more to do. We need to make sure they don't regroup." Tavares nodded, his eyes scanning the bridge. "Understood. We're ready to follow your lead." The situation had shifted dramatically in the past few hours. Where they had once been on the defensive, now they were taking the fight to the enemy. The crew of the Aurora had proven their strength, not just their weapons or their tactics, but their unwavering resolve. They had faced the fearsome Thyrix fleet and come out on top. But as Calloway knew too well, this was only one battle in a much larger war. As the Aurora powered up its engines, preparing to jump into hyperspace in pursuit of the fleeing Thyrix forces, Astra's voice broke in once more, her tone almost matter-of-fact. "Captain, I have detected a new signal from an unknown source. It is coming from a nearby planet. The signal seems to be of artificial origin. Shall I investigate?" Calloway's eyes narrowed. Another twist in the road. She muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "Prepare to investigate, but stay on alert. We don't know who, or what, might be out there." Astra confirmed the command with a slight pause, her systems already analyzing the signal. "Understood, Captain." Course set for the source of the signal. The crew braced for what was next. A new mystery, a new potential threat, or maybe something they could use to their advantage. As the ship prepared to make the jump, Calloway took a final look around the bridge. There was no doubt in her mind. This crew was something special. Humanity's most unpredictable force in the galaxy had just proven its worth. The Aurora wasn't just a starship. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience and courage. They were far from finished. The Aurora entered hyperspace, the streaks of light outside the viewport blurring into an ethereal ribbon as the ship powered toward its new destination. The crew was silent, each of them reflecting on the battle they had just fought, but their minds quickly turned to the unknown signal Astra had detected. Was it a trap, an ally, or something far worse? Captain Calloway stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the slowly rotating holographic map of the galaxy. Astra's voice, always steady, broke the silence. "We will arrive at the planet's coordinates in approximately 3 hours, Captain. The signal remains active and unaltered." Calloway nodded, her face hard. "Prepare a full scan of the planet's surface. I want every bit of data we can gather before we make contact. And make sure to analyze the signal. If this is a trap, I want to know exactly how they plan to spring it." "Understood, Captain," Astra replied, her systems already running multiple diagnostics and scanning protocols. "I am prioritizing detection of any hostile elements in the area." Lieutenant Lyra stepped up beside Calloway, her expression thoughtful. "You think it's another alien race, or something else entirely?" Calloway's gaze never wavered from the map. The fact that it's artificial means it's been deliberately sent, and if the Therics knew about it, we'd be dealing with an ally or worse. But it could also be a distress signal. Could be anyone, really. "Any indication of its origin?" Lyra asked. Astra interjected before Calloway could respond. "The signal seems to be originating from a large facility located near the equator of the planet's largest continent. There are no signs of any active settlements nearby, though I have detected an unusual electromagnetic anomaly surrounding the region." Tavares, who had been quietly monitoring the systems from a nearby console, spoke up. "Electromagnetic anomaly. Could be a weapons defense system, or just natural interference. But it sounds like the place is heavily guarded." "We'll take that into account," Calloway said, her voice sharp with command. "Prep a small team for surface recon. Tavares, Lyra, you're with me. We'll leave the rest on standby. The rest of you will stay behind and continue scanning for any additional surprises." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, the same quiet determination that had carried them through countless battles. Soon enough, the Aurora exited hyperspace, and the blue and green orb of the planet appeared in their view. It was a beautiful world, untouched by the ravages of war, at least on the surface. But something about it didn't feel right. It looked too peaceful. "Looks like a paradise," Lyra muttered under her breath. "Don't let the scenery fool you," Tavares replied, his voice low and wary. "This place has secrets, and secrets have a way of hiding dangerous things." Calloway gave the order, and the landing craft was prepped for descent. As they approached the surface, the facility came into clearer view, a large, sprawling complex built into the side of a mountain range. From above, it looked almost abandoned, but there were signs of recent activity, faint traces of heat signatures, and lingering atmospheric disturbances. "Looks like we're not the first to arrive," Calloway muttered. "Astra, can you get a clearer picture of the facility's layout?" "I'm working on it, Captain," Astra responded. "It appears to be heavily shielded, Most of the data I'm receiving is being filtered through jamming fields. Calloway's brow furrowed. That's not a good sign. The team landed a short distance from the facility's outer perimeter, disembarking with careful precision. The air was thin, and the mountain winds whipped around them, a stark contrast to the pristine tranquility of the planet's surface. As they approached the facility, the ground felt unnaturally still. "This is it," Tavares said, his hand resting on the hilt of his rifle. "If anything's going to jump out at us, it'll be right about now. Keep your eyes open," Calloway ordered, leading the way through the rocky terrain. "We're not walking into a welcoming committee." They reached the entrance to the facility, a massive steel door, sealed tight. But just as Calloway moved to check the locks, the door slid open with a mechanical hiss. A figure emerged from the shadows. A tall, cloaked figure, humanoid but entirely foreign. "I've been expecting you, Captain Calloway," the figure said, its voice deep and smooth. "And your crew. I trust you're ready to understand what you've stumbled upon." Calloway's hand instinctively went to her sidearm, her team mirroring her motion. "Who are you?" she demanded. "And why did you call us here?" The figure tilted its head, and a faint smile crept across its face. "The real question, Captain, is who sent you here, and what you plan to do with the knowledge you will find."